Today we're going to dive into one of Python's most powerful and honestly most essential tools, the loop. If you've ever found yourself thinking, there has to be a better way to do this repetitive task, well, you're right, and this is it. This is how you make the computer do the boring work for you.
So just imagine this for a second. You've got a list, a massive one, with 1,000 names, and you need to send a personal greeting to every single person on that list. I mean, what's the plan? Are you going to copy and paste 1,000 times? No way. It's not just tedious, it's a guaranteed way to make a mistake. This is exactly the kind of problem programming was designed to solve.
And the solution, it turns out, is incredibly elegant. It's called looping. At its heart, a loop is just a simple, automated way to tell your program, hey, see this list? I want you to walk through it one item at a time and do this exact same thing to each one. It's the power of repetition, but without you having to do any of the repeating.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the why loops are so fundamental. Then we'll get our hands dirty and build a basic for loop and, of course, see it in action. After that, we'll level up with this slightly more advanced technique, and then we'll wrap it all up with the key things you absolutely need to remember.
Okay, first things first. Let's really get to the core of why we even need loops. It all boils down to one thing: harnessing the power of repetition without writing repetitive code.
So what do we actually use them for? Well, all sorts of common tasks. Sometimes you just need to read through a list of data, maybe looking for something specific. Other times, you're processing every single item, like, say, resizing a whole folder of images. Or maybe you're applying the same mathematical formula to a big data set. Basically, if you find yourself needing to do the same thing over and over and over again, a loop is your answer.
All right, enough of the why. Let's get to the how. In the world of Python, our #1 tool for this job is the for loop. Just think of this as your essential blueprint for walking through any list you can imagine.
And this is it. This single line of code is the heart of the whole operation. It's clean, it's super readable, and it tells Python exactly what you want to do. So let's break down what each little piece of this blueprint actually means. Let's pull this apart. Every loop kicks off with the keyword for. That's the signal. Next, we make up a name for a temporary variable. Here we call it item, but you could call it name or num or whatever makes sense. This variable is a placeholder that will hold each value from the list one at a time. The keyword in is the glue that connects our temporary variable to the list we're working with. And finally, that colon at the end, super important. It says, okay, everything that's indented on the next line is the action I want you to repeat. Now, here's what's so cool about this, and what this slide really gets at. You don't have to manually tell Python, okay, now go to the second item. Now go to the third. And you don't have to tell it when to stop either. Python takes care of all that bookkeeping in the background. The counting, the stopping, the moving to the next item. It just works. And that makes our code way cleaner and much less likely to have bugs. Theory is one thing, but seeing is believing, right? So let's put this blueprint to work with a couple of real code examples. Here we go. A classic first example. We've got a list called fruits. Our loop says, for fruit in fruits. So the first time through, the variable fruit becomes apple, and the code prints apple to the screen. Then Python just automatically moves on. The second time through, fruit becomes banana, and it prints banana. Finally, fruit becomes cherry, it prints cherry, Python sees it's at the end of the list, and the loop is done. That's it. Okay, let's kick it up just a little bit. Here, we want to add up all the numbers in a list. We start by creating a variable called total, and really importantly, we set it to 0. Then our loop starts. It says for every num in our list of numbers, we're going to add that number to our running total. So let's trace how that total variable grows. It starts at 0. First time through the loop, it grabs the 2 and adds it, so total becomes 2. Next, it grabs the 4, adds it to our current total, so now we're at 6. Then it adds the 6, which gets us to 12, and on the very last pass, it adds the 8. That brings us to our final result of 20, just like you see on the screen. The loop did all that addition for us, step by step. So that basic for loop is going to be your workhorse, like 90% of the time. But what if you need to know where an item is in the list? You know, its position, or what we call its index. Maybe you want to say item number 1 is this, item number 2 is that. For situations like that, we need a slightly different approach that gives us a bit more control. Okay, let's compare these side by side. The simple loop on the left just hands you the item directly. Apple, banana, cherry. Easy. But the index-based loop on the right, it works a little differently. It doesn't give you the item itself. Instead, it gives you the item's position number, its index, 0, then 1, then 2. It's up to you to then use that number to go get the item from the list.
So here's how this range-len combo actually works. First, len of colors figures out the length of our list, which is 3. Then, range of 3 creates a sequence of numbers starting at 0 and going up to, but not including 3. So we get 0, 1, and 2. And what are those? They're the exact index positions for our list. Our loop variable I then takes on each of those numbers, one by one.
And this is the result. The output shows it perfectly. On each pass of the loop, we have two pieces of information, the index I and the value at that index, colors I. This is so useful for any task where an item's position is just as important as what the item actually is.
All right, we've covered a ton of ground here, from the basic why all the way to some practical code. So let's boil it all down to the key things you really need to remember.
So let's lock this in. First, at its core, a loop is your tool for doing something to every single item in a list. Second, in Python, the simple for loop is going to be your go-to. And remember, one of its best features is that Python handles the complicated stuff for you. Here's your rule of thumb. Always start with the simple for item in list. It's cleaner and easier to read. Only pull out the more complex for I in range of list when you actually need to know the item's position.
So there you have it. The for loop isn't just syntax you memorize, it's a fundamental blueprint for automation. It's the difference between doing a task once and building a little machine that can do that task for you 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times without ever getting tired or making a mistake. You've got the blueprint now. The only real question is, what are you going to build with it?